guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with a video that is a collab with Cheyenne from That Tall Book Girl. If you are not following Cheyenne yet, I highly recommend checking out her video. I love Cheyenne so much. She reads so many romances and a lot that I've never heard of before, so I always get the best recommendations from her if I'm ever looking for something new. She just hit 3,000 subscribers on YouTube, so a huge congrats to Cheyenne. But I asked her to collab with this video on me because I would love to see her answers to this, but it is all the 5-star books I've read this summer. Now, I'm counting May in this as well because the last time I did this video was at the end of April. I did all my 5-star reads so far this year, and I did the first 4 months, so now I'm doing my 5-star reads for the last 4 months, which are May, June, July, and August. I'm just saying it's summer, but I have a lot, like a page and a half full of books, but I will go ahead and get to all my 5-star reads, and you might see some books I talk about all the time. You might see some books you forgot that I read and loved, but let's get to all the books. I do own, like, physically a bunch of these, but I'm not about to take all these out off my shelves. So the first one's Praise by Sarah Kate. I'm actually in the middle of Give Me More, which is book 3 in the series. I read this one and obsessed over it. Like, it was without a doubt a 5-star read, and it is a ex-boyfriend's dad romance. The dad does own a special club, and he is into some special things, and he thinks that the heroine is there to be part of his club, and she has actually showed up to his house to get a check that her ex-boyfriend owes her, and quickly realizes his mistake, but then he feels horrible and decides to hire her as his assistant, and she is very intrigued by what he does and asks to be shown some things, and their romance is so good. I just love this book so much. I loved the heroine's relationship with her sister and her mom, and it was great. Couldn't recommend it enough. We cannot have this list without Miss Sophie Lark. I loved Ivan, and this one I actually was reading because I'm trying to get back into the Kingmaker series, and I read book 1 of the Kingmakers, and then I had to go back and finish The Brutal Birthright, and then I read these first 2 books in the Underworld series, so now I'm going to try to go back into her other series. But this one was so good because Sloane is a assassin, and she is hired to kill Ivan, and actually makes it closer than anybody else has before. Ivan catches her, holds her hostage, and they fall in love. Sloane is such a strong character though. She can hold her own, and she is not like some damsel in distress, and it's amazing. Someone's also trying to kill her, but it is so good. I love this one so much. I flew through it. It's really short, but love the series. You'll see snow a couple books down. Oh, I do have some historicals, which I have been reading a little bit more historical romances lately, but the first one is The Marquess Makes His Move by Diana Quincy. I was obsessed with the first book in the series, and then I read book 2, and I didn't love it. I gave it 3 stars, so I was very nervous going into this one. I was obsessed with this one. I gave it 5 stars. This one, our heroine is a map maker. She worked for her father. Her father passed away, and so she had to marry her father's apprentice in order to still work at his shop, but women can't really have those jobs, and so she makes maps, very beautiful, gorgeous, detailed maps, and she writes her initials, so she has the same, I believe, first initial as her husband, so people think it's her husband making these. And so one of the maps that they created was actually drawn incorrectly and cheated the hero out of his land, and so he's a Marquess, and so his land is not saying that he owns it, and so he decides to confront the heroine's husband and say, "You're cheating me out of money, like what the heck?" But what he does, instead of actually confronting the husband, he decides to pose as a footman in their household in order to get more information. And so he is actually put to be in charge of the heroine and be her personal, like, footman. I don't know what you would call it because it's not a maid, but he ends up spending more time with her and starts understanding more about her. She doesn't really get along that well with her husband, and they don't have any kids, and her husband's not really, like, interested in trying, and so she kind of opens up to our hero, and he is getting really close to the servants too, which is super cute. I love that. He is, like, giving them stuff, and he has to make up excuses of, like, where he found it because he's supposed to be another servant, but he starts falling for her too, and it's so good. She is married, but there is an HEA in here, and I was obsessed. It's so good. I loved how she was passionate about map making. I loved how the hero was, like, undercover, and it was just amazing. Please read it. I also have Love in the Afternoon by Lisa Kleypas. This whole series is really good, but this last book is the youngest, I believe, sister's book. It's all about the Hathaway siblings, and their parents are no longer alive, so it's their books. So our heroine loves animals, and she has, like, been eccentric the whole series. She has a ton of them. She has been writing letters to this man in the military under the name of her friend. Her friend has kind of been like courting the guy and she's not really interested, so the heroine decides to write letters to him. And so the heroine, she has a very unique reputation in town, and so the hero definitely has like opinions about her. He comes back from war, he's very damaged and has PTSD. He has his dog with him who was also in the war with him, and he is like, great, now I'm gonna like court the girl I've been writing to and we'll see how it goes. And he quickly realizes she is nothing like the letters, and he starts spending time with the heroine, even though they didn't really get along, and she is super cute with his dog, and it's their romance, and it's so good. Obviously, she is gonna hurt him if she tells him like she was the one writing, because like it was all a lie, that it was this other person, and he is like determined to marry this other person, but he knows something's off. It's so good. I love epistolary romances, and they really did fall for each other through their letters, but like she was writing as someone else, and I love the ending to the series. I need to find more series like this because most of them I really loved, but this one was just really good. Then I read The Wrong Heart by Jennifer Hartman. This one is, again, just a very emotional book from Jennifer Hartman. I've only read Still Beating in this one, and they both just like really punch you in the gut. So our heroine loses the love of her life, and it's really hard because you read the prologue and she is madly in love with her husband, and then an accident happens and he dies and he donates his organs, and she is distraught, heartbroken, and cannot get over it, and so she begs the doctor to give her the contact information for the person who has her husband's heart. So she starts writing to him. She meets a different guy at a suicide prevention group, so know that this does deal with like just a lot of heavy topics. He has a very damaged personality as well, and he just like does not care about people or anything, and he is very just stoic and apathetic towards a lot of things. And then they start talking. She really changes him, and the story goes on from there, and that's all I want to say. But Jennifer Hartman really punches you on the gut. She gives you so much emotion, and I really like this one. Okay, this one I talk about all the time, but it is Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reed. This one is an MM hockey romance. I have to continue on with the series because this one is amazing. I think it's Shane and Ilya, and they are rivals, but they have like grown up as rivals. Since they were teenagers, they're always pitted against each other. They were like, who's gonna be drawn in the draft first? Who's gonna have the best rookie season? And they start hooking up though, because they have always like been pitted against each other, and they have this kind of rivalry happening, but something happens where they kind of hook up, and now every time they're in each other's cities, they on the down low spend time together, but it's all very physical until it turns emotional and serious, and it is so good. I love sports romances, and this one I love because they are literal rivals, but things heat up like the title says, and things got very emotional too, and they really cared about each other, especially Ilya and his family back in Russia, and I just really loved how much Shane cared about him and wanted to be there for him, and vice versa, and it was just so, so cute. Then there's gonna be a couple Catherine Cowles on here. The first one is Beautifully Broken Control, which is a small town romance. The heroine's father stole money from a lot of people, and she has felt guilty because she got to live a very lavish lifestyle from other people's money, and so he is caught. She actually helped turn him in, so her family hates her, but the world hates her as well because they think she's responsible for it. She gets death threats, and it's awful, and so she decides to go to a small town and hide out there, and she actually volunteers at a shelter and hates money. She like despises money. It's a turnoff for her. Well, the hero is a millionaire, and he is in town, and he sees her, and he's really into her, and it is the first time his money means nothing. Like, it's an actual turnoff to someone, and he is like, what the heck do you mean? And so he starts falling for her, but she is definitely hiding out and running from this awful past she has, and he has some secrets of his own, and it's just really good. This was definitely my favorite in the series. I love it when one of them is just hiding from something and is really hard to break down their walls because of everything they've gone through, but the other person has to be very patient and earn their trust, and it was just really good. I just love Catherine Cowles, and I love this one. Then we have Parallel by Elizabeth O'Rourke. I know you guys are probably tired of hearing me talk about this book, but this one is time traveling, and the heroine has dreamt about Nick her whole life and called him her husband, and her family was like, this is weird and not normal, and so they kind of shut it down, got her into therapy, and now she's an adult. She's still dreaming about Nick, but she is engaged to someone else, planning her wedding, and meets Nick, and things go from there. They're like, I dreamed about you, and she's like, I know everything about you, and he's like, no one knows this about me. How do you know this? And so they have to unravel how she knows him, and secrets are revealed, and it does need to flesh out a little more in the second book. We don't understand why things are happening or how after the first one, so I have to finish the second one, but I'm obsessed with this. Nick was very possessive and jealous that she was engaged to someone else, even though he doesn't even know her, and it was so good. Then I have Everything for You by Chloe Leese. This one is an MM sports romance again, but this one is actually soccer, and they are not people who get along. And so the one hero is young. He is like the sunshine character. He's super excited about everything and their neighbors. The other character is a lot older. He is like not a lot older, but he is, I think, in his 30s, and as a soccer player, he is like on his last leg with his body. He's like, I cannot do this much longer, and they have to be co-captains, and they don't really get along, but they are neighbors, and they're pushed together a lot. There's an only one bed trope in here. They have to travel together, and it is so, so sweet. The one hero, who's the younger one, he goes out of his way to make sure the other hero feels okay and like helps him with things that he needs, and he has like special things in his shower for him that he might need because he has a really hard time like standing up in the shower. So he has a shower chair, and it is just like the sweetest, the little things he does to make sure the other hero is okay with his chronic pain, and it was sweet. Like, I love an older grumpy hero and how much they fell for each other, and I just had a fun time reading this, and their families, because the one is a Bergman, so he's a lot of siblings, and now he has nieces and nephews, and I just adore this book. It was really cute, and I love the fact that they played soccer together. I love it when they're teammates, so this one was good. Then I have Snow by Sophie Lark. This is book 2 in the series, and this one is a underground fighter romance. So the heroine's father is in debt to the mafia, and so she's horrified that that has happened and offers herself up in order to free her family of the debt. And so she has just finished medical school. She wants to move so that she can be a respected doctor, but now she has to be the mafia's special doctor, on-call doctor, especially for their fights. And so Snow is actually a fighter, and he is trying to get money so that he can have a fighting career in the United States. And so he has come from a bad background. He's trying to make his way up into the big fights, and he meets our heroine, and he is instantly protective of her. She should not be in this world, and they start dating when they know they really can't, and it's a forbidden romance, but they fall hard and fast for each other. And I just really like their characters. They both wanted more for their lives, and they had these goals, but their lives really held them back because of people in their lives in different circumstances. But it was so good. Like, I love this world Sophie Lark has created, and I'm just obsessed. The next one I talk about a lot too, and that is Juniper Hill by Devney Perry. This one, our heroine is a single mom with a newborn baby, and it's really tragic, like talking about what happened to her. She keeps it a secret for most of the book, and the hero has a very tragic past of his own. He's very grumpy. He works for a restaurant in a hotel that the heroine has a cleaning job at now, and she is renting out the garage at his house because his sister kind of made it that way because his sister owns the hotel, and he ends up trying to help her because she's having a really hard time even though he doesn't want to, and they fall in love. It's so cute, like two just very damaged people who are trying to make a life for themselves fall for each other, and I really liked his family, and it's just so good. I love this whole series. I recommend checking it out. I think this is Devney Perry's best series yet, so I highly recommend. Okay, so the next couple I actually talked about in Monday's video, so sorry if this sounds a little repetitive, but they are 5-star reads. The next one's Honey Trap by Tate James. This one's Polly. Our heroine is an assassin. She gets a job to kill someone. It's obvious it's a suicide mission. No one's ever succeeded before, and someone's trying to get her killed. She's not allowed to reject job offers, and so one of the heroes is someone who works for the same like assassin group, and he's a really good hacker. He's obsessed with the heroine, stalks her, wants her for himself, and she ends up taking the job even though he tells her no, and she falls for the guy she's supposed to kill because he kidnaps her, because he is like, you're trying to kill me, and she's like, no, I'm not, and she has to act like she's not, and she's just like caught up in this situation on accident, and it is so good. I was obsessed with the heroine. She reminded me a lot of Sloane from Ivan. She could hold her own, and she was really, really into the guy that kidnapped her, but like had to act all scared and terrified, and it was so funny. And I have no idea how this is going to be polyamorous though, because both heroes are super alpha and want her for themselves, but somehow they're going to share. I don't know how, but this is amazing. Then we have Sweet Dandelion by Macaulay Smelter. I listened to this on audio, and this one is a forbidden romance between a student and her counselor, because she was in a school shooting where she lost her mother, and she was shot as well, and so she had to recover. Now she lives with her brother and is at a new school, but the rule is she has to meet with the counselor every day because she has to talk through what happened to her. They slowly start falling for each other, and they see each other a lot outside of school. He does live in her brother's building, and it's a very, very slow burn romance and a very, very emotional one. She has to really delve into her own life and on her own emotions and what she wants out of life and figuring out who she wants to be as a person, because she is at a very vulnerable stage in her life. But the romance was just amazing. I loved it so much. Highly recommend checking this one out, especially the audiobook. I feel like I'm flying through these, but I'm already like really far in and I still have like half the books to talk about, so I'm going a little quickly. But the next one is The Takeover by T.L. Swan. I was pleasantly surprised by this one. I know people loved it, but I was a little hesitant to go in because everybody loves it. But this one was so good. Our heroine, she has 3 sons and she loses her husband, and so she's taken over his company and it's not going well. And she is very stubborn. She is determined to make it work, but Tristan is like, I'm gonna buy your company from you and I can make it better. And she is horrified. She's like, no, I can do it myself. You're not gonna ruin my husband's legacy. And so she really just hates him. And they end up meeting at a conference, and Tristan is head over heels in love with her, and she is older than him and he is usually like a playboy millionaire, and they end up spending time together and he takes her to Paris. They have an amazing time together, but she's got to go home and he meets her 3 sons and they are older. So her one son is a teenager, her other one is like middle school, and the other one's like 5th grade. So one of them is a terror demon and he puts Tristan through the ringer. It is so funny. I laughed out loud so many times in this book, but he is so determined to win the heroine over, and it is so cute. I was obsessed with this book. I could not get enough of it. I laughed out loud through so many parts. It's definitely a unique romance. I could not recommend it enough. Definitely check it out. It is hyped for a reason. I loved it. My foot fell asleep from sitting so long, but the next one is Puck Me Secretly by Odette Stone. I think every book that I read in the summer by Odette Stone I gave 5 stars, so you'll see a couple more by her, but this one is our heroine and hero are on a plane together in the beginning and they get into a plane crash. They survive together. They are so horrified over what happened that they spend the night together and they hook up. They go their separate ways, and then the next day they realize she is the new trainee under the general manager, who is her father, and the hero is the new rookie hockey player. He got into a lot of trouble on his old team and he needs to keep a really clean record at this new team, and she is trying to be taken seriously because people already think she got the job because of her dad, which she kind of did, but she wants to prove she's good at her job. So they need to be professional, but she needs to make sure that the new rookie stays in line, and they start falling for each other. He is so protective of her. I loved the things he did to make sure that she was safe and okay, and it's definitely a lot of forced proximity because they have to work together, but it was so good. I love the series so much. Oh, they're so good. All of them do have a little bit of suspense at the end with kind of like mustache twirling villains, a little bit cliche, but they're such a fun time. You have to pick the series up. The next is a duet, which is Bring Down the Stars and Long Live Beautiful Hearts by Emma Scott. This one is just super angsty because our heroine is in college and she ends up meeting this guy. They do hit it off with one another, but he is just very grumpy and doesn't really want to talk to anybody. He just focuses on track and schoolwork because he is there on scholarship. He comes from a very poor family. His best friend is super wealthy. Him and his best friend have been together like best friends for a very long time, and his best friend has been there for him along the way. He would never betray him, and his best friend's like, hey, I met this girl. She's amazing. It is the girl that he met and he is kind of falling for, and so it's definitely a love triangle. She starts dating the best friend, even though her and the other guy have a really deep connection, and he ends up like helping his best friend get the girl too, which adds a little bit of tension between them, and the 2 guys do end up going into the military together at the end of book 1, so please know that this has to do with that. So I love these. I gave them 5 stars. Definitely very emotional. Then there's Psycho by Onley James. This one is MM, and the hero is a psychopath. He is a professor and he's from a family of psychopaths who all are using their psychopath tendencies for good and kill people that are bad. So their adoptive dad gives them people to kill and they do it. And so this one is the professor's story. I don't remember his name, but he ends up falling for another professor there, and the minute he sees this other professor, he is like, you're gonna be mine, and he is so adamant that they're gonna be together, and it is so good and so endearing. Like, these are about psychopath serial killers, but they're like the sweetest romances ever. This is book 2, and the other hero is actually kind of clairvoyant. Like, if he touches someone, he can see things about them, and so he touched someone that was part of the FBI that he worked for and saw that he was a serial killer, and so he tried to bring him down, but nobody believed him and thought he was crazy, so he got kicked out of the FBI and is now a professor, and I think he like does teaching about like profiling, stuff like that, like serial killer profiling, like what he was doing for the FBI. And he touches the hero and realizes he's a serial killer, and he's like freaking out. And so they have to work through things, and it is so sweet and so cute. He's like, can we go out to dinner together? And the other guy's like, no. He's like, well, I'm gonna bring you dinner. And so he's just like very adamant that they're gonna be together. And I thought it was super endearing and sweet, and I loved it. And I love this series, and I cannot wait to read more. The next two are Devney Perry's, and the first one is Tragic. This one is very emotional. Our hero went through a very tragic event, and what's interesting though is his brother is actually in the Clifton Forge series, so I thought that was very cool, that like crossover. But he went through something very tragic, and he's very grumpy. He lives alone, and he gets a new neighbor, and the heroine has recently gone through a divorce, and she really wants to find someone to release her tension with, and she sees the hero, and she's like, he would be perfect for that. But the hero instantly hates her. He's like, get off my property, you're too close, you're making too much noise, because she's renovating the cabin. But they do end up spending a night together, and then that turns into something more. It's very sweet. I really liked it. I love a good small town grumpy hero. And that's what this is. Then we have The Outpost, which is definitely my favorite in the Jameson Valley series. This one, our heroine is on the run. She is an investigative journalist. She exposes the mafia. She was dating a guy in the mafia to write this article, and so she is on the run, and she goes to this small town where I believe like her friend was living there, and this guy who is like pretty much like the protector of the town. Everyone goes to him when they need something. He has a cabin which is like called The Outpost. I think it's where people stay when they're like hunting season, so like it's super far secluded, and he takes her there, and they have to survive together out there. Like, it's not like survive, but they are living off the grid together to protect her. It was so good. I loved it. It's definitely forced proximity. She is definitely more of a city girl. He is a small town guy. He has a cute dog, and this book is just so good. He is also works for the fire department for some things, like when there's a forest fire or something, and I love this. Highly recommend checking it out. The next one is Hidden Waters by Catherine Cowles. This is book 3 in the series. Our heroine grew up in like a cult family, very abusive family. She has finally decided to leave them, and she is living with the family of her cousin, who her cousin married into, so she gets to stay at the house that one of them owns. And the guy's brother is in town. He was a traveling doctor. He's come back into town, needs a place to stay, so he's rooming with her. He is staying at her house. She is very hesitant to trust anybody, but she sees that he's very kind, and he is trying to be kind and gentle with her. He knows she's been through a lot. He doesn't want to hurt her. He just wants to be friends. And so she makes a list of things she's never gotten to do because she lives so sheltered in this cult, and he helps her. He makes sure he stocks the fridge with like all different kinds of pops, buys different food for her, is teaching her how to drive, and it's just a very sweet, gentle, slow burn romance that I just loved. I love this one so much. We have some suspense at the end too, with her past coming back to haunt her, and he is very protective. Catherine Cowles is just an amazing storyteller of just very sweet romances, and I love this. Then I read Ransom by Julie Garwood. This book was so good. So it kind of had two romances, kind of not. Our hero is the laird of a clan, and he hears that someone claims that she is engaged to him, and he's like, I don't know who this is. The heroine lost her father, and they apparently had some box that was stolen from the king. I believe it was the king. And so her father was murdered, and she was taken in by the people who killed her family, and she thinks that her sister has this box. And so her sister was last heard living with the Scottish. And so there comes a point where she is like, I will get the box for you, because the guy who wants the box is threatening to kill her uncle. So she's like, I'm gonna go get it. And so the only way she can figure out how to get there is by saying she's engaged to this laird, hoping he'll come and help her. He comes, and he's gonna help her, and they fall in love. It was so cute, and I believe she was English, and there's always animosity between the Scottish and the English in her books, in Julie Garwood's books. Excellent banter, amazing romance, and then his friend also has like a little side romance that wasn't really like super important, but I love the banter in here, the chemistry between them. It's just so good and so funny. The humor in Julie Garwood's books is unlike no other. I loved it. I have 2 Odette Stone books I read back to back. We have Home Game, which I've talked about endlessly on my channel. The hero ends up helping out the heroine because she's homeless. He lets her stay with him, and it's their romance. He is a hockey player, and she has been really hurt in her past. She has survived on her own for so long, and she's determined not to let people take advantage of her, and he knows there is a delicate balance in their power dynamic because he is the one housing her and helping her and she is the one who has nothing, and so he doesn't want to feel like she owes him anything, and it was fabulous. 5 out of 5 stars. Amazing. I also read High Risk Rookie, which our heroine is a sports agent. She is determined to get the hero to be her new client. He wants to get into playing in America. He was in Europe, and they end up spending a drunken night together when she tries to get him as her client, and they wake up married. And they end up having to keep it a secret because she does not want to ruin her reputation. She's trying to be one of the like top 10 business professionals like in sports or something. She's super successful and trying to get him a contract. He is trying out on a new hockey team, which is the Timberwolves, whatever the series is called, and it's good. It's great. It's a hockey romance. I'm obsessed with the series. Okay, I have like 10 left. I'm gonna try to get through these. Next one is Bad Boys Break Hearts. It is a sports college romance. Our hero and heroine knew each other as kids, but the heroine's dad was a bad person. She had to leave. Her mother is just like not around anymore after what happened with her father, and so she hasn't seen the hero at all since then. Now it's college. He sees her and he just decides he hates her, so it's definitely hate to love. He is the hotshot baseball player in town, and she kind of starts dating his friend, I believe, if I remember, and it was just so good. I really like this. A really fun new adult romance. I just love Magnolia. Then I have The Silent Waters by Brittany C. Cherry. This one is a very, very emotional romance that I talked about in my video on Monday as well. This one is our heroine is brutally attacked as a child and does not speak about it or speak at all and will not leave her home. And so it goes like 15 years, I want to say, where she's living in this house, and our hero is Brooks, and he has been in love with her since they were children, and he is by her side for a lot of it, but he is trying to live his life, and they try to see if things will work between them, but he does end up getting a gig with his band where they are making it big, and so he does have to leave. He's touring the world, and it's just their romance and their journey of trying to see if they can make it work between them, because she is confined to her house and she is still traumatized over what happened to her, and Brooks is the sweetest hero ever, and I was obsessed with this romance. Definitely very emotional. Then we have Innate Me Baby by Tilly Cole. This is a reread, but I gave it 5 stars again. Our hero is part of a motorcycle club. He is the MC. He does have a stutter, so he does use ASL a lot. When he was younger, he saw this girl, and he has never forgotten her since. She was on the other side of a fence. She was very angelic, dressed all in white, and she was crying, and they had a connection, and he has not seen her since though, and she is our heroine. She is in a cult. She escapes. She barely survives. She is bleeding out, and she makes her way to his compound. She doesn't know it's his compound. She just sees all these people with like skulls everywhere and tattoos, and she's like, I am in literal hell. Like, what is this? And she sees the hero though, and he is so protective of her and takes care of her and tries to protect her, and it is so good. I love this one. I read book 2 and I didn't love it, but I have high hopes for book 3, but this one, so good. Then I have Garnet Flats. This one is book 3 in the Eden series by Devney Perry. I love this one so much. Our heroine was dating our hero about like 8 years ago, and he broke her heart by saying, we're breaking up, I'm marrying your best friend. And so she was devastated, left, went to college, and is back in her hometown. The hero shows up in her hometown and is like, I'm gonna win you back. He is divorcing the best friend, but he still talks to her and is still really good friends with her. And he is opening his own gym in her small town because he is training for a UFC fight, and he is trying to win her back. It is super, super angsty. She is so angry at him. She's like, you broke my heart. I can never trust you again, and we unravel why he did that to her and if they could be together. And I loved how dedicated he was to her and winning her back, and it was just angsty and good, and I loved it. Like, I think she did forgive some people a little too easily, but overall, it was so good. Then I have Noble Prince by Devney Perry. I think I gave 2 of these books 5 stars in the Clifton Forge series. This one is another one where the heroine is on the run from people who want to kill her. So in this one, it's a rival MC club. So she is hiding out at the house of the police officer who has been kind of trying to help the MC in Clifton Forge. So there are 2 rival MCs, the one in Clifton Forge that's disbanded, and then the rivals in a town over. The heroine is hiding out in his house, and he is definitely someone who has to get used to balancing helping people he knows is bad in order to get a worse guy and bring the worst guy down. He very much reminded me of Officer Danner from the Fallen Men series, where he is in love with someone who is part of an MC, and he knows that they are like not bad people and that there are bigger bad people he needs to take down. And I really enjoyed this one. Such a good romance. I just loved the hero so much. He was so cute. Then I have Shattered Sea by Catherine Cowles. This one comes out soon in a couple weeks and it is so good. Our heroine was in a car accident when she was a teenager and loses her boyfriend in the car accident, and she has had chronic pain since then because of the accident, and she works at an art gallery now, and she has an adorable dog. Someone is kind of going after people who were also in the accident that she was in like 10 years ago, and she just has kept to herself and is just trying to live her life. And the hero is an actor in town studying like rehabilitating horses, and so he is staying on a ranch and he meets her, is instantly intrigued by her, wants to know more about her and starts spending time with her. She is very closed off and she feels guilty for moving on from her dead boyfriend. She still talks to his family a lot even though it's been a long time, and she needs kind of protecting because someone is kind of picking people off that were in her accident, and she has a lot of dangerous situations she's put in. This one I think is the most romantic suspense out of all of them, but I loved it. I love the series so much. I have 4 books left. Next is Magnolia Parks. Toxic, messy. Magnolia and BJ were dating and they are like soulmates, but BJ cheats on her. We don't know everything about that until the very end of the book, but the book follows Magnolia dating other people, BJ sleeping around with other people, and them constantly hurting each other, hurting other people. It just follows these rich 20-somethings in England, and it is toxic, messy, and addicting, and I could not put it down, and I'm obsessed. Then we have Ivy by Willa Nash, who is also Devney Perry. This one is about 3 people who are roommates, and the one girl gets invited to stay with them, and she is on scholarship, so she really needs a very cheap place to live, and it's like this giant mansion, and she's like, this is not normal, like what's happening? And one of the roommates says, oh, well, my other roommate likes to play games with our roommate, so be prepared. And so it's more like she's gonna make her life miserable, and she is like, I could care less. I need to study and pass college, and that's all I care about. And so they end up having 3 different relationships with people, and it's just a very messy new adult romance. And one is a brother's best friend romance, one is a best friend's brother romance, and one is another roommate's brother romance. Like, they are all with people that are messy romances, and I loved watching all the romances develop and them not being friends, but like kind of end up being nice to each other, and it was just so entertaining, and I just could not put this book down. Then there's Tin Queen by Devney Perry. This one is the last book in the Clifton Forge series. It is super angsty. Our heroine is the daughter of the bad MC's president. He's in jail, and she is so angry about what happened with her family that she decides to infiltrate the other MC and date the guy she feels is responsible for her dad being in prison. She starts falling for that guy. They start a very physical relationship because Emmett is not really someone to settle down, but he sees her at a bar, they go home together, and they start up this relationship and then start really falling for each other. But she hates him because of what he did to her family, and so she's like literally sleeping with the enemy. She has lots of secrets come out about her family, and this is definitely a really great conclusion to the series. I loved seeing all the other characters and Emmett finally finding what he wants out of life and seeing all of his friends settle down, and he's like, I want that. And a lot of questions are answered, and it was just a great ending to a series. I loved it. And the last book I have is Flawless by Elsie Silver. This is a small town romance where the heroine works for her dad's PR company. The hero is a bull rider, and he is heard really talking badly about a company he works with. He says he hates milk. It's a milk company. It goes viral. He gets fired from the sponsorship, and so they have to fix his image, and so the heroine is put on as his like babysitter to make him stay in line and act correctly, and so she has to actually live with him for 3 months until his championship game or ride or event or whatever, and it's got such good banter, forced proximity. I loved his family. He fell head over heels in love with her. It was so good. It was so good. I love this so much. He's like 7 years older. He's in his early 30s. She's like 25, and it was just amazing. I loved every second of this book. Highly recommend reading it. That took me forever, but those are all the 5-star reads I've read in the last 4 months. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you check out Cheyenne's video. I cannot wait to see what books she talks about. And that's all I have. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye.